Hi there. Today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of PSP games and how they perform on the Ampone or MagicX Mini 028 handheld. You can see here I have quite an elaborate recording setup. I had to do a couple weird things with this device just to get video out. I'm using a rank chip USB-C to HDMI capture or screen mirroring device, and that is going to an HDMI splitter. One of the outputs of that splitter is going to the HD60S Plus capture card. The other end of the splitter is going to the monitor so I can view it here. Unfortunately, the rank chip adapter does not support audio, it only supports Bluetooth audio, so I'm using headphone out here into the Tascam DR44WL portable capture device. Normally I'd use the analog in on my HD60S Plus capture card, but it was creating some sort of weird feedback or hum ground loop, so I had to utilize a portable device, and it does seem to capture the audio perfectly well that way. To my understanding, there is processing power within the rank chip adapter, so it's not going to be using a lot of resources from this handheld, so the performance you're going to get in PSP games is going to be nearly identical, if not identical, to what you're going to see here in this video. Without further ado, let's get into testing some games. Starting off, we have ATV Offroad Fury Pro, which plays pretty well with minor frame drops. You're going to see the settings that I chose for each game on the right side here, and I did my best to tweak the settings and mess around with as many options as I could to get the best performance possible. I did choose to use Vulkan for every single game on this list, and there are some with minor graphical issues that can be fixed by switching to OpenGL, but typically Vulkan is going to give you the best performance. Overall, the Mini 028's hardware performed very well for emulating ATV Offroad Fury Pro. This is a game that can be very susceptible to input delay and lag when the frames drop, but this hardware is definitely powerful enough to emulate this game very well. Next is Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. I chose to set a max frame rate of 28 FPS, and you can see even here and there we're going to get some dropped frames. And this is one that I would definitely consider highly playable and a very good experience. In terms of not so good of an experience, we have Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories, which is basically right on the edge of being a good playable experience. You definitely could play the game like this, but as you can see, we're running in the mid-20s, and when certain parts of the map unload and load, we drop into the mid-teens. It took quite a bit of work to get this game to run this well, and it required a pretty hefty underclock at 111 MHz. You'll see that for some of these games. But after quite a bit of tweaking, this was the best I was able to get this game to run. Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. This game is notorious for being one of the more difficult PSP games to emulate, and it's very surprising to see how well it runs. This game is pretty unique because it runs at almost locked 30 FPS when you're in free roam and not in a race. Once you get into a race, you will notice some frame drops. You can see here we'll drop to the mid-20s, but overall, it's still a very good experience, and I would consider this highly playable. MLB 07 The Show, one of the best portable baseball games ever created in my opinion, runs very well on this hardware. It's going to stay right at 30 with very minimal drops, and they're going to be so infrequent you won't even notice them. One thing I do have to mention though is that the Mini 028 screen is so small that it's very difficult to play this game. I think on MLB The Show 2010 and 2011 they actually introduced a closer catcher cam, where it zooms a bit more into your strike zone when you're batting, so that could be very useful in terms of a more playable experience on this tiny handheld.
High in the air and deep down the line and right, and that is over the wall, home run.
And folks learned that the heavy ocean air here in San Diego was going to be a boon to pitchers, but this ball cuts right through and winds up getting out of here. Not bad.
Ridge Racer 2 was pretty interesting when it came to getting the game set up to run well on this hardware. I used a frame skip of 1 to set a 30 FPS cap, and the game still looks fine at 30 FPS, and it definitely plays a lot better. When I was shooting for 60 FPS frame rate, I was getting tons of drops that would slow down gameplay and make it harder to play. Using the Vulkan renderer, you do get some graphical issues, as you can see here. You might be able to fix those by switching to OpenGL, but you will sacrifice performance. Here's an interesting graphical issue that I encountered where it shows the level select screen when activating nitrous, only on this level, and then it didn't happen again. Tony Hawk's Underground 2 Remix really shows the capabilities of this hardware, and it's pretty amazing how well this game runs. cutscenes definitely have a lot more frame drops than actual gameplay, and most levels are going to be perfectly fine, almost locked 30 FPS. I did notice there were a couple levels, like New Orleans, where I did drop into the mid-20s in certain areas where there was a lot going on, but overall it didn't impact gameplay that much. Syphon Filter Dark Mirror, an incredible game, definitely one of the best on PSP. This took quite a bit of messing around to get it to run this well, and as a result of all the tweaks I used, you get some strange lighting glitches, as you can see here, where lights shine through solid surfaces. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a way to get this game to run very well without having that issue be present, so you just have to deal with it if you want to play the game. You could play through the entire game like this, assuming you can tolerate the graphical issues.
Over. Teresa, target code named Red Jack is down.
NBA 10 The Inside is definitely an easier game to emulate, but it runs at near locked 60 FPS, and it's a great experience to play. If you like arcade and simulation hybrid basketball games, I'd highly recommend checking this out if you haven't before. I'm not really a big fan of the NBA in real life, but this game is a lot of fun to play, and so it's worth checking out.
Now we'll get another look on the replay.
Honestly, my favorite part of this game is probably the pickup mode, where you play on like a community basketball court, and you get to choose from a randomly selected roster of players, and this makes for a very fun experience. Flatout Head-On is basically the PS2's Flatout 2 ported to PSP, and this game blew my mind when I first played it. The fact that they were able to get this to run on PSP hardware, with the amount of detail in the physics and the environment, and this is also really good to play on the Mini 028. You will get minor frame drops here and there, and this game is very susceptible to input lag if you do have frame drops, but I played through a couple races, and while it was pretty difficult to play on the tiny screen, it was still very fun, and it performed very well. Another game that's basically a PS2 port, we have ATV Offroad Fury Blazin Trails, which is the equivalent of ATV Offroad Fury 3 for the PS2, and this game runs super well. There are similar graphical issues to what we saw in ATV Offroad Fury Pro, so it might be worth messing around with a couple settings, trying OpenGL to see if you can get rid of them. The only thing that I could really see limiting how much you'd enjoy playing this on the handheld is the graphical issues, so it really depends on how tolerant you are of stuff like that. Gretzky NHL 06 is a game that's going to run as close to perfectly as possible on this handheld. This is definitely one of the easier games to emulate on PPSSPP, and with no underclock and no hacks, you're going to get near flawless performance.
Pass to Lang. Niedermeyer takes the puck. Lettinen knocks a man off his feet. Dallas on the attack. A drive. Hit the outside of the net. To Iginla on the rush. Unloads a bullet. Saves it. Pass back. Wrist shot. The save.
With just a couple minor tweaks, Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars is going to run really well. There were a couple minor frame drops here and there, but honestly the biggest problem you're going to face with this game is playing it on the 2.8-inch screen. It is really hard to see where you're going when you're driving. The rest of the gameplay is honestly fine though. Midnight Club LA Remix was honestly the most interesting game out of all the ones I tested. I had to do a serious underclock at 111 MHz, which basically makes the game run between 20 and 25 FPS when you're out in free roam. But weirdly, when you get into races, it runs at 15 FPS. It will occasionally bump up above that, but it stays pretty close to 15 FPS the entire race, which is unplayable in my opinion. The input lag is noticeable, and honestly it looks better here than it actually plays, so this is a game that I would consider to run poorly.
You're gonna get a parking ticket if you don't speed up.
Winning 11 Pro Evolution Soccer 2007, also known as Pro Evolution Soccer 6 in Europe, is going to run really well. This is the portable version of what many people consider the best football or soccer game ever made. In this game, even the PSP version is definitely in my top 5 of all time. This game runs near flawlessly on the Mini 028, and I wouldn't be surprised if the FIFA games are pretty close to perfect as well. They're not the hardest things to emulate. I do think this is a bit easier to emulate than some of the FIFA games I tried in the past, though. The Simpsons game runs extremely well on this hardware with almost no tweaking. It is one of those unique PSP games that natively runs at 20 FPS. I always found that interesting, but that's probably what they had to do to get the full console game to run on this handheld, minus the open world. Nonetheless, you'll have a very good experience playing this.
My plant is working. Yes, your friend.
The plant smells great today. Don't you just love Mr. Burns? I mean, you're seriously.
SSX On Tour, which is very similar to the main console release SSX3, is going to run super well. This is a surprisingly easy to emulate PSP game. Moving on to a PSP game that is notoriously difficult to emulate, we have Test Drive Unlimited. This is a game that also natively runs at 20 FPS, so if you attempt to use frame skip or hacks, the game basically becomes unplayable. My biggest complaint when actually trying to play this on the Mini 028 was input lag, but that might just be part of the game. I'm not 100% sure if there's any way to deal with that. With basically default settings, Tony Hawk's Project 8 runs great. Not much to say about this one, it works perfectly fine.
Amazing. Oh, you nailed it. Yeah, there you go.
And last but definitely not least, we have Wipeout Pulse, which required not only a 30 FPS cap using frame skip, but also a pretty significant underclock. And it's right on the edge of being a great experience. It's definitely an okay experience. You could play through the game like this, but in a game that requires pretty quick input, you are going to get a bit of slowdown when the frames drop, and that can make it difficult to not hit the walls like you see there. But in general, yeah, you could definitely play this on the handheld. This is just a small selection of games that I have installed on my Mini 028 that I thought I'd show off. If you're interested in seeing any other PSP games in a video like this, just let me know, and I can tweak them, try to get them to run as best as possible, and make another video like this. So just leave that in the comments. Thanks a lot.
Missile.
Race complete. Second place.